So out of all of the things that can kind of plague or cause pain to an administrative team, I think a really big one is this kind of disconnected relationship that can sometimes exist between marketer or marketing team and admissions team.
Yeah.
There's often what feels like miles in between those two, and they operate very separate from one another. So I kind of wanted to talk about some ways to maybe bridge that gap and the importance behind bridging that gap, because I think that there's so much there and so much value that can come from finding ways to kind of make a partnership there instead of two separate entities.
Yeah, and it might be two departments, it might be two people, it might be anything in between, depending on the size of your school. But yeah, I think that's kind of we hear that a lot, like I give them leads, but they can't close them, or you're not giving me leads that are worth, you're not giving me good leads. Can I get the better leads? Can I get,
Yeah.
What did you do a couple months ago because that was working, and now what you're doing isn't working? And
and a lot of times that's the extent of the conversation.
Yes.
It's, hey, there's a problem, I need better leads, or
hey,
you
here's your leads.
You just need to close more. You just need to be better.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think there's a lot of things that can happen before that conversation gets there to fix the problem, opposed to being upset that there is one.
Yeah. So I think our first point basically is to make sure that you're regularly meeting and communicating the lead flow. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, that needs to be something that happens, I mean, not annually, but monthly at least, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, more frequent is better.
And I think, because it's funny, the memory for anybody really is like, it's pretty short, especially if you're not used to working with marketing, you're not used to having a funnel. It's like understanding that, where a lead is coming from, what their mindset is. You just forget.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big thing. Like, as an admissions rep or someone on that side of things, you could get a lead, and depending on where that lead came from, that conversation looks very different than whatever. So I think, that's important for the admissions team to understand, here's what we're doing to get these people and get them in touch with you, and that can kind of help steer that conversation for those admissions reps. But then reversely, it works the same way. Marketers need to understand kind of what admissions reps want those conversations to look like, how they're having the most effective ones, where the most effective ones are coming from, which programs. There's many factors that kind of play on both sides and allow both to be more effective.
Yeah, for example, we'll have a funnel where, we're introducing the school through some content, and then there's like 6 steps until they actually enroll. And at the beginning, we may have like a quiz that they can take that's like a fun little quiz, not a big ask, but it allows them to put their name and email address in. And then further down, they can actually apply for a program. And they're both leads, but one's really different. One is like, here's my money, take it. And one's like, I'm kind of interested in college, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And so if you're kind of interested in college, you're going to talk to that person a lot more. The close rate's going to be a lot smaller. But they're also probably not looking at other colleges.
Yeah.
So, it's just understand. But if I just get 2 leads in, I'm going to say this one's more valuable than this one. Yeah,
and I think that's a lot of times where the frustration comes from is there's not an expectation set for what type of lead you're going to be getting. So an admissions rep may be thinking, okay, I'm getting someone that's highly qualified, ready to sign their name, but oftentimes there's not, like, we have a 6-step funnel, so we get people on step 1 and 2, and maybe they're interested but not ready to commit, but they express interest, and that's still a conversation worth having, but it's very different, like you said, than someone who made it through step 6 and is saying, it's time for me to go to school.
Yeah, you also may have like a career fair that you do or something like that, and you get a bunch of leads and deliver those, and there's just these aren't worth anything, these are worthless, but you paid nothing for them or whatever, or vice versa. So just communicating and making it a partnership versus a peon relationship where you're like, here's your leads.
Yeah.
Or
do what you will.
Yeah. Or give me better leads.
Yeah. And I think that feeds well into kind of the next point that we want to make is feedback is huge here. And I think we kind of touched on a lot of this just before, but for both sides, getting feedback from the other is huge. I think even more so as a marketer from your admissions reps, kind of understanding, here's the people we're having a lot of success with, here's the things that people are saying, and the reasons they're saying they can't go to school, or that they were really excited to have this conversation. Maybe it's economic, maybe it's geographic, it's too far away, whatever it is. But that changes the way you talk to people, the audience you're targeting. Like, that influences so much of a marketing strategy. But not knowing that information, it's a shot in the dark.
Yeah, and if you are closed off to feedback, and you explain those things the way they say, well, the people we're getting, they can't afford, or they can't even qualify for financial aid. Like, you could explain that away and say, well, there's a lot of people that can't afford it. But you may find that that could be valuable in that you reshape the audience that you're going after, or you use a qualifier that says, if these things have happened in your life, you can't, well, whatever.
Yeah. I think that would be kind of the big takeaway for this one is you can always find a way to kind of reason with why things are happening and, like you said, explain the negative outcomes, but don't take them as, well, that's how it happens. That's what.
Or even like just, oh, well, they're just complaining.
Yeah.
They're just complaining about this. Like, just listening, having humility does improve the process.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you're not having those conversations with the prospective students, so there's no way for you to have that information outside of talking with an admissions team or an admissions rep. So I think one thing to keep in mind is this isn't a knock on your marketing efforts or the campaign you're running.
Yeah.
This is, you made step one. You got an audience and you got people in the door, and now you've learned how to refine that audience and make the next wave better. And I think that's an important way to kind of think through that whole conversation. It's not them saying you're bad at marketing to people, be better. It's okay, this was good, we had good conversations, next time let's do this.
Well, that's an interesting thing. We were talking earlier about me fighting with our spouses, and like my wife had this big fight, and hope she doesn't watch this. Is she watching this? And she like apologized, and like she was like the humble one, and she basically in that she won because like, oh, you were humble first. Well, great.
Yeah.
And it is the kind of same thing. Like when you listen to feedback, it's not like people are going to think you don't know how to do your job. They're going to feel great. They're going to feel like they're a part of it, and that actually it's counterintuitive, but actually lifts you up.
Yeah, it's very true. I think it very much points back to a partnership and makes things far more healthy. Yep. So communicate with marketing and admissions teams and your spouse. That is the takeaway.
Apologize first.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, That's all we got. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.